Welcome, everyone, to Path of a Magdalena. I'm Diane Brenneman, and it is my pleasure to have with me Lalita Shree. Lalita began her spiritual journey at the young age of 16. She has been a brahmachari within Her Holiness Sai Ma's organization since she took initiation in 2016. And in 2019, she was designated as a Maha Mandaleshwar, which is a high honor recognizing her spiritual teaching abilities within the Indian tradition of the Sadhu Society. Lalita is the creative director for the organization Awakened Life. She is a teacher, she is an artist, she is a musician, and she has taught her practices around the world. Lalita, welcome. So good to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here with you today.
And it is my pleasure not only to be with you, but to have the opportunity to talk to you about devotion.
Yes, one of my favorite topics.
And a topic that I think probably isn't so well understood in the West. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And in my experience, I've spent a lot of time in India, and it's something that's really ingrained in the culture there. And here can be a very foreign concept. And when I first received this invitation to speak about devotion, my first thought was, what could I possibly say about devotion? Because it's such an energy and an experience and a being that is beyond any intellectual understanding.
So it's not something that's of the mind.
Not at all.
We can't read a book about it and suddenly get it.
Nope.
So I think, Lalita, oftentimes people think of devotion as something being devoted to something outside of themselves. Is this what you're speaking to when you talk about devotion?
Yeah, so devotion in my experience is really a state. And there are practices that I've done, and that I know there are many different practices that we can offer to embody that state of devotion. And sometimes they are directed towards something apparently outside of ourselves, but truly it is about that inner devotion. So anything that we're quote unquote devoted to outside of ourselves is only for the end of becoming that devotion ourselves.
So, Lalita, are you saying that we do these practices that focus on something external in order to build the presence of devotion inside of us?
Yeah, that's my experience. And I'll use practices in India as an example. So puja is a very common practice, and it can take many forms. I've been offering puja. It's called the Shree Lalita puja. So I have here a Shree chakra. It's a crystal that's carved, right? So if you look at it just as kind of an object, it's just a crystal. And when I practice the puja, it becomes a living deity. And in the practice of the puja, I'm chanting mantras, I'm offering it rice, I'm offering her flowers, I'm offering her a drink, I'm bathing her. And there's all of these steps that are each one of them an expression of devotion. And in that, it's as if I am offering that to myself, to my own highest being. I was given the name Lalita. And Lalita is the great divine goddess. And this is the Shree chakra is the form that most closely represents that energy of Lalita, the Divine Mother, in physical form. So this practice of offering is that each offering is an act of devotion, of love, of giving of one's heart to something. And in that, I become that devotion. And it truly has nothing to do with this external object that I'm offering to. It's all about that practice that cultivates. And Ma has said that you can worship a stone and be enlightened. You can build a deity out of clay. And if you worship it with all of that devotion, that is a path to enlightenment, not because of the clay, but because of that state of devotion. And I think the reason it's so powerful is because there's no place for the mind. There's no place for the ego. It's such a humble state. And it's that ego that can take us away, divert us from our path, our spiritual path. So that energy of devotion is pure heart. It's beyond emotion. It's beyond us, what we could call human love. It's that unconditional, unbounded, beyond love devotion.
So by giving that to this external object, whatever it might be, you are practicing being inside of that internal state of devotion. Here's no ego.
Yeah, and there's a focus and a falling away of the ego, and a rising of the heart and the humility. And we can offer those practices. Another practice that we practice commonly is arti, where you're waving a flame. In India, they practice it. They offer arti to a river or a mountain or any deity or anything. And it's that reflection of the light without as the light within. So truly every one of these practices is about that light within. And I think the greatest place where my devotion has grown is in my relationship with Sai Ma, who is this exquisite embodiment of divine love and devotion. And in that relationship, there's that just experience of wanting to offer everything of who I am. And in that I become that devotion.
Lalita, tell me what your journey has been like with her soul, her holiness, Sai Ma, in learning devotion. What has that process been like for you?
Well, I met Ma just before my 20th birthday, and immediately I was blown away by the energetic experience that I had. I had been to India before I met Ma, and I'd always been interested in spirituality and practicing. I would eat up anything that I could, but when I met Ma, it was the most tangible experience of everything in me lighting up. I could feel all of my cells bubbling with light. I could just feel this awakening through my whole being. And that unconditional love that Ma is completely enveloping me. And the more time that I spent with Ma, the more that I found myself entering that place of love, where there's nothing but that love. And it's in the moment I met Ma, I knew that it was my path. And every opportunity I could, I would go to programs, I would do seva, selfless service, and I started meditating every day as soon as I attended a program. And it was really the devotion that kept me coming back every day, every moment. And I don't even know how to articulate what it is, but there was just that knowingness and a surrender of anything that's not that, anything of the ego constructs that try to pull me away and distract me, and just knowing, no, this is it. This is the most important thing to focus on.
Lalita, when you say that, I think that in the West here, we're oftentimes so very focused on acquiring something. And yet, when I hear you talk about devotion, what I hear you speaking to is a process of surrendering
Mm-hmm.
over and over again something. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, it is. When I think of devotion, it truly is an offering, of an unconditional offering. And in that place, there's no desire to acquire because it's so full that there's
Mm.
no lack. There's nothing missing in that state.
Everything is there. Yeah. You know, the other thing that I found in teaching and that I've certainly seen inside of myself from time to time too is that oftentimes we relate to these spiritual principles as though they were an on and off switch, as though we either have it or we don't. When my experience and what I hear you speaking to is that it's a process over and over again of surrendering to and embodying more fully this frequency. Is that your experience? Do I hear you right, Lalita?
Yeah, and more than the word process, I would use the word becoming,
Mm, yeah.
because process feels a little bit linear, and it's a becoming, and we're over time an unfolding of that. And I found that practices in with any quality in my spiritual path, my practices have served me more than anything to be anchored in that. And when I think about how many times I have offered arti, almost every day for the last 15 years, some days I don't necessarily enjoy it. I don't necessarily feel devotion, whatever you could call it as a feeling. Sometimes it feels more automatic, and sometimes it's just the most exquisite, expanded experience ever. But I remember one time when I was living in the ashram, Ma said that no matter what, we never skip a day of arti. We offered arti every morning and every evening. And one day a week, we had silence on Thursdays when we didn't do any meditation, we didn't do any seva, but one person would offer arti. And Ma said, when you're offering arti, there's no room for the ego. And so that practice of having an established devotional practice, and whatever it is for you, but in that place, something grows inside. And in that moment, there is no room for the ego. And having that space allows us to become more of that, and less of the part that keeps us in suffering.
And so, Lalita, as I listen to you speak, what I hear you acknowledging is that for you, on this experience of devotion, one of the things that was very important in being able to embody it more and more fully was a dedication to showing up every day for those practices.
Yeah. And I can't say that's needed for everyone. That's been very important for me in my practice. And I do think the word dedication fits, because when I think of Ma, or when I think of Mary Magdalena and their devotion, like, there is nothing in the world that would cause them to waver because of that devotion. Nothing.
Right.
So there is that steadfast dedication beyond anything.
And you experience that in a particular way when you're with someone who is truly devoted. I don't know how to describe that either, Lalita, but it is a particular experience to stand in front of someone who you know is 100% devoted to spirit, devoted to you, the light in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when I think about devotion, and again, oftentimes inside of our society, how we think about it, it seems to me that oftentimes people fear that sense of devotion as though it's a narrowing or a closing down of their life, when actually it's this opening. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, anything that brings us into a fuller expression of our true spiritual nature is going to threaten the other part of us that
Mm.
doesn't want that. So there's that. And if that's something that you're concerned about, I invite you to think about where you do experience devotion. A lot of us experience it in our close friendships, with our partner, with our children. I mean, how devoted is a mother to her child or a father to his child? That is an expression of devotion. And here we're elevating it beyond attachment, beyond emotion, where it's just that pure, steadfast heart, and with the commitment to that, to a higher spiritual being. And again, I'm like, these words are so not capturing what devotion is, but coming close, hopefully.
So instead of being devoted to a crystal, being devoted to a person, inside of that frequency of devotion, it's actually a devotion to the whole, to one, to unity of spirit. Is that a way of explaining it?
I don't
That
think
way,
it really matters what we're devoted to. You
because
know,
it's all there.
devotion is devotion. And if we're that, then we're becoming that.
And if you're that, then you're everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ma speaks about how devoted Ma is to us, or, I'm sure Mary Magdalena to her students and to Master. And I'm not devoted to a crystal, but I'm not saying you were saying that either. But like, but I am devoted to the spirit and the light and the presence of the Divine Mother. And these mantras and the chanting allows me to express that devotion. And that's what's so powerful. I could take away the crystal, and it's actually the chants that gets me into that state of devotion more than anything. That's for me. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different expressions that bring us into that state of devotion.
And it's a devotion to the light that's there.
Yeah.
So, Lalita, you've mentioned Mary Magdalene. Talk to me about the ways in which you see that Mary Magdalena so beautifully embodied the frequency of devotion.
Yeah, that's a great question. What I see is that, as I spoke about that steadfastness,
Mm.
she was she was so devoted, nothing could cause her to doubt Master, nothing could cause her to be unfaithful in how she showed up for him. And I think of the way that she would anoint his feet, wash his feet, and anoint them with these very refined oils, and that as an expression of devotion. And I think if we look at any story we've heard about her with Master, we can see devotion in that.
I love that word that you used of steadfastness. I think of her as being, one of the few who did not run away when Master was being crucified, but instead was steadfast in her devotion and stood there at the foot of the cross. And then, of course, returned after he arose again. That steadfastness really is one of the hallmarks of devotion, don't you think?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's one of the things that you're training when you show up daily to practice devotion, is that.
Yeah, and when I think about my spiritual path, it hasn't been easy. There's been a lot of trials, a lot of turbulence, a lot of challenges inside of myself, and it's devotion that keeps me coming back every day. That it doesn't matter how challenging it is. It doesn't matter how much purification and burning and conflict I experience. That is all coming to surface to be cleaned, and that devotion pierces through all of it so that there's no room for that to take me off of my path.
Mm. It's beautiful, Lalita. Really beautiful. This month, our 3 takeaways are as follows. Number 1, devotion is not an intellectual endeavor, but instead is a state of spiritual being. Number 2, devotion is not a process of acquiring a new frequency, but instead is a journey of letting go of ego to cultivate love for all. Number 3, devotion requires a steadfastness of practice in most circumstances and is often expressed in the world as that same steadfast dedication to the light. Our 3 journaling questions. Number 1, what am I devoted to in this life? Number 2, what practices am I engaged in or could be engaged in to deepen devotion within me? And finally, number 3, what would a becoming of devotion within me do to change my experience of life? Well, Lalita, would you like to lead us in a meditation practice to take us deeper into the experience of devotion?
Yes, I would love to. So I invite us to find a comfortable position with our spine straight, closing the eyes. Simply allowing yourself to relax into this moment. So physically relaxing the body, relaxing the legs, the shoulders, the face. And this relaxation allows us to be open. There's no need to effort. Taking a breath, continuing to allow any tension to fall away. And resting for a few breaths, just in the simplicity of this moment, where we're not adding anything to it. There's just that presence of being. In the rise and the fall of the breath. Bringing our attention to the heart center. And allowing the love within us to expand. That tenderness and the simplicity of being. And thinking of something that we know we are devoted to. whether that's a relationship, could be a specific energy or a master, it could be nature, could be our very own heart. And just in thinking of that which we are devoted to, allow the devotion to flower. Offering of our own heart, our own light, offering of ourselves to be an expression, an embodiment of this devotion. Devotion is so pure, and it is so humble. We want nothing more than to serve the light. And opening to the presence of Mary Magdalena and her eternal devotion for you. She is so devoted to you. For you to become that master, that embodiment of the divine. That presence of the Divine Mother. If you choose, you may speak to that presence of the Divine Mother. Beloved Mother, Ma, Shakti, I offer myself to you. I offer my hands to serve the light. I offer my voice to speak truth. I offer my heart as this flower of devotion. Beloved Mother, make of me a being who is so pure, and allow her love to envelop you. Allow yourself to be held by this presence of the Divine Mother. And if it helps you, imagine a form or a face of who the Divine Mother is to you. And feel her love. Feel her love for you and for all beings. And allow that swelling of your own heart as everything melts away. Everything, and what is left is the heart. Resting in silence for a few moments, breathing in the heart, breathing in that eternal quality of devotion. And simply allow. If thoughts come, bring those thoughts into the heart. Opening ourselves to our own light and loving that light. Being so grateful for that light. My beloved light, I will honor you. I honor you with every breath, with every word, with every step, with every action. I am here to embody you. Allowing that light to flood into your body, to flood into your emotional body, your mental body. Simply allow. Allow in that place of steadfast faith in your own light. And that you are that light. That is who you are. And you are here to become that fully. Offering all of who you are to that light within. That God within. That perfect being. Feeling as if the heart is swelling. As if there's this outpouring from the heart. Where every breath is a worship, a puja, an offering of your love and your devotion. This state of devotion is a pure beingness. So allow yourself to enter that temple of being. Feeling the beauty and the grace that is devotion. And become aware of all of the beings of light that are so devoted to you, that are here to serve you every moment. Allowing yourself to receive their love, receive their devotion. And offering your gratitude to all of these beings of light. Any of your guides or masters that you work with, or that you honor. Offering your gratitude to yourself, to your light. Offering gratitude for this life, for this great privilege of being human at this time. And having the opportunity of self-realization and the opportunity to serve and to birth this new age together. Taking another breath in the heart. And another breath, filling yourself with that life, the breath of life. And then gently opening the eyes and looking with those eyes of devotion, looking from the heart. Seeing the other as the light.
Lalita, thank you. It was just lovely. Really lovely. Mm. Well, my gratitude to all of you for joining us this month. It's been a beautiful experience, I know, for me. Lalita, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It is my deep pleasure to be with each and every one of you.
And we look forward to seeing all of you again with us next month. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.